Meet Fraser Mayfield, a digital recruiter, tech enthusiast, and a builder of extraordinary teams. His journey bridges technology and talent, helping startups and scale-ups turn big ideas into reality. From health tech to gaming, fintech to space exploration, Fraser has worked with innovators across industries.
For those who do not know you, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Fraser Mayfield. I run a business called Form Careers. I started that up just during the lockdown and started up the business and basically specialize in tech recruiting. So in the software engineering and kind of design testing, these kind of things.
Also, so the way you sort of run fun careers seems to be, it seems from my perspective, it seems you are very, very focused. I'm looking for the word for it. You are particular about the way you run it. Yeah, and you don't want to. You are not looking at getting it to be the biggest. Seems to me, seems you are curating. He said the craft beer of recruitment.
The craft brew of recruitment.
The craft brew of recruitment. Can you walk with?
You know, that started as a joke. Someone asked me to describe what makes what I do different from every other recruiter out there. And there's this thing in the industry that you ask any recruiter what they do differently, they'll tell you that it's all about people, it's all about the passion for helping people and all these kind of things. And that's great and everything, but everyone will give you that answer. Networks in recruitment will tell you that they do it for the love of the job and it's nothing to do with the money and this kind of thing. And the only way I could describe the way I ran the business any different from that was beer's beer, right? So you buy a Bud, you buy a Beck's, you buy a Brewdog, you buy any sort of beer, beer's beer, okay? But then you have the craft beer, which tends to be smaller companies, smaller batches, there's more time and effort put into the ingredients, and they tend to be more unique, and they're not for everyone. I mean, that's a big factor of it. They're not trying to please everyone. They're not trying to be everyone's number one go-to. They're small, they're specialist, and they like it that way. And that's kind of what I'm going to do with the business. The real focus is on doing it the way I think it should be done. And if you like that, great. If you don't, brilliant. There's 100 other agencies that you can go and work with that'll do very much what I do, but do it in a different side. So really, it's just the way I approach this. It's slightly different from us. So, and it kind of stuck, and people seem to like it now. Although I do get people asking if I craft beer. And I'm like, no, I don't. So I should probably take that up.
It's up for this. So I usually like to go to Zero when I want to talk to Fraser, maybe Fraser when Fraser was growing up.
Yeah.
I was in Reno, like.
It was good. Very regular. Oh, God, very regular.
Well, what do you call it over there?
Regular, I grew up in this little street, Paisley, and every kid in the street was pals. All age groups, everyone was friends. Playing consoles, playing football, playing in woods behind the house. So it was just out on bikes. It was very much go out and playing when the lights come on, you're home. And yeah, it's good. So good family, a close-knit family. Yeah.
So I love the fact that you said you started from Paisley.
Yep.
The last person, which was Nick, too, is from Paisley.
Yep.
He started. Do you know
which Nick?
Nick, the person I walked out, Justin.
Oh, no, I don't.
He's also from Paisley. So only today's Paisley Day. I also live in Paisley.
Oh, do you?
Yes. Whereabouts? I used to live in Wells Street.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we should boycott that about us. I don't know if it was active brand for me. So, was there anything, because I know Paisley, okay. Was there anything in your childhood that prepared you for how you are approaching how you're building fun careers?
Yes.
I say.
Yes. Firstly, my dad worked from home for like my entire life. My dad worked from home. So he had...
I thought work from home was invented during COVID.
Nope, my dad did it for like 4 years. He worked for Air France, and he worked in their sales. He was like sales director in the end, and he worked he had an extension built in the back of the house, and that was his office. And he worked from there for my whole life. So I spent summer holidays, and I spent when I came home from school. My dad was there. He would drop me at school. He was the one that picked me up, and he was working when I was there in the summer, and he was always working on sales. So a lot of the time I remember when I was growing up, I would be sneaking past his desk while he was on sales calls, and it was a do not speak, and it was very strict. When he's working, don't disturb him. But he would always share knowledge and experience, and I would always hear him on the phone. And back in those days, he had two numbers, two house phones. But quite often, you would pick up a phone, and it would be someone from his work, and I'd be handing over the phone. So from single digits, I had experience of dealing with my dad's clients and customers and colleagues and speaking to these people and learning from them. So he's a people person, and he taught me a lot of stuff that I still hold with me today. A lot of lessons he still does. So yeah, so I learned the whole homeworking thing, the discipline that's associated with that, and the concept of how to work people. Honesty was a huge thing, Colin. Always be honest, own your mistakes. So yeah, no, I learned a lot from operating in terms of how I approach my business and how I approach a lot of this.
Impressive, impressive. I'm loving the way this is going. Tell me one thing. Give me a masterclass in sales.
Masterclass in sales. God, I'm the least salesy person in the world. I don't sell. It's a blessing and a curse, but I'm much more interested in building relationships with people over time. Getting to know people, making myself visible, and I don't sell anymore. I mean, I can sell. In a traditional, get someone on the phone, get them interested in your product, get a meeting booked with them. I can do that, a form of sales. I've worked 20 years in recruitment. It's how I was trained in hard sales. But the way I run the business now is not about that. It's about understanding people. And my concept is that it's a hell of a lot easier to sell if you understand people and you're not trying to push them into your solution.
Right.
But when they need something, they know where you are, they know what you do, they know your way of working, so they pick up the phone. So 90% of the business that I get comes to me now, rather than me going out chasing it.
Of course, you are very, very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I want you to talk to me a little bit about this podcast is for people who are
Trying to start business or in business to take them from 0 to 1, and those who are in 1 from 1 to 100.
Yep.
So how do you approach marketing for phone carriers? I see, because let me give you a little bit of context. You are one of the people in this environment, in this community, that has a very, very strong personal brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, you share your stories, what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and it's sort of magnetize people towards you. And I'm sure that's where 90% of all of your businesses will come from. And I think that's one of the ways in my mind, for you as a brand, in my mind, that's how I see you as, like the brew, and like the crafts, the craft brewer, crafts brew. You are different. You rarely talk about what it is you do.
Yep.
Or people begin to fall in love with you as a person.
Yeah.
Then they go look at what does it do. Then, of course, whenever they have business, because you built the know, like, and trust factor. How can a founder do that?
That's a really hard question. I think from the very start of building my business, I did it in a way that suits my personality. And I built the business it was actually a last approach to recruitment. I was almost done with recruitment. I was about to leave the industry. Right before COVID hit and lockdown hit, I had my resignation letter written, and I was going to leave the industry because I was done with it. I was bored of it. I was burned out. And then when that all happened, I decided to do it the way I wanted to do it. So everything about my business is a reflection on my personality. I think that suits the way I do my business works for me because it's me. And I think what you've got to do is, if you want to start a business, you've got to look at your position of strength. You've got to look at what you're good at. You've got to look at how you want to do it and what. Use the word passionate. Everyone uses the word passionate, and a lot of people don't like the word because it's overused. But I think you've got to find a way of approaching business that you genuinely enjoy. You're not going to love every part of your job, but if you find these little moments that you know, I really like working that way, then do more of it. And use your personality, use your characteristics, use your strengths, and take all these things into your business. and then look at the things that you're not so good at and find ways to compensate for that. I'm terrible at admin, so the most expensive part of my business is my accountant, because my accountant does everything for me. It's automated. They're on top of me. When a button needs pushed, they contact me and tell me to push that button, so I can just forget about it and end up late on everything. So that's the biggest expense for me, because I know I'm terrible at administration. So I counter that so that I can focus on the stuff that I'm good at. So delegation's a big factor. And anything that you can delegate that you're not interested in, find a way of doing that. Now, a lot of people start up, think it tight, and you can't go hiring lots of people to do all these bits for you. But there's ways to increase efficiency. There's ways to optimize the stuff that you don't like, get things ticked off. That if there's a task you don't like, but you've got to do it every week, tick it off fast so you can then focus on the stuff that you're good at. But I don't know. I just think that you have to go into business in a way that you actually enjoy working. If that answers your question,
That KP does answers my question, because you build a business around, you are saying it's an overused word now. You've noticed a need, and you've noticed how you as a person will want recruitment to be.
Yep.
And something not so big, something small, something specific, something that does, like you mentioned, that is not for everyone.
Yep.
Or is for a specific set of people. Do you have, okay, let's talk about how did you started this business?
right.
Okay, you found that story.
Do you want the catalyst? I've written about this a couple of times, and people seem to relate to it. Pre-COVID, I had 2 kids, both at nursery. So I think my eldest was maybe 4 at the time, 4 and 2 years old. And every morning, my wife's in the police, so she's got very little flexibility around her working hours. She works for the courts, so she gets up and she's out in the morning before the kids are ready to be dropped off. So I was dealing with 2 kids at nursery age. Now, the nursery opens every morning at 8 in the morning. Recruitment, anyone that works in the game knows recruitment tends to be minimum hours 8 till 6. That's the standard recruitment hours. And obviously, I've been in the game for a long time, so start work at 9, fair enough. But I used to have to get up in the morning and get 2 kids ready and take them to nursery and drop them off at different doors opposite sides of the nursery. And the only train that got me into town on time was at 8:30, and it was a mile drive down the road. You had to park at the overflow car park, run up the hill, and get on the train. And this got to the point that more often than not, when the train came in, the driver was holding the train and waving me on. I'd see when a train driver is not sticking the finger up and laughing as they pull out the station as you try and make the doors, then you kind of know something's out of whack, when they're starting to feel sorry for you because they see you every day sprinting up the hill to get to the train. And so by the time I was getting to work in the morning, I was beat. I felt like I brought a marathon already. Dealing with 2 kids at the best times isn't easy, but when you know that you've got that time to deal with, and being a working father, it's even less of a thing to ask for flexible hours and things. As a dad, it tends to be, traditionally, it would always be the mum that does the school pickups and the drop-offs and these kind of things. So being in a very old school traditional industry that's based on hard sales and targets and being at your desk for long hours, and then all of a sudden having to balance family life into that was just, it was flattening me. And the company I was working with at the time had changed quite a lot. They'd moved to quite a sales-focused, KPI-focused environment, which didn't really vibe with the way I worked. So I was done. I had my resignation written. It was in my jacket pocket that I wore to work every day, and I was waiting for the spark to hand it in. And just as I was reaching that point, COVID hit. Everyone got sent home from work, and we were told to work from home. And literally the first day of COVID, I came home and I said, I'm never going back. That's it. I said, if redundancy comes up, I'll grab it with 2 hands. If it doesn't, I'll work out what I'm doing, and I'll find a new avenue. But I was never going to go back to what I was doing and trying to run that. So COVID hit and that happened. My wife was pregnant with my third kid at the time. So the second that obviously set back, she was putting fuel in. So the two of us are sitting in the house. And at that point, I'd never even considered starting the business because it just felt this massive risk. Got a mortgage, I've 2 kids, I've got a wife to look at. It's like, there's no way I can start a business at this stage. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and everything was a risk. I mean, everything was a risk. No one knew what was going to happen. I never knew if I was going to be able to get another job off this. It was like the world was going to collapse as far as half people were concerned. Yet things kept ticking along. So all of a sudden I decided, you know what? I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this the way that I think it can be done. I want to do it a way that suits me. And so that day I went on to the HMRC and spent £14 and registered my business, and I kicked things off from there, which is also how I managed to, that's where the LinkedIn thing came from as well, because I had furlough and voluntary redundancy came up, which I took. So I had about a year where I couldn't be working and I couldn't be active in the market, but somehow I had to stay relevant and stay in people's minds or I would be starting from nothing. So I started writing about surviving homeschooling with kids. My eldest at that point, he started primary 1. And then all of a sudden we were homeschooling them because the schools were all closed. And it's like, all of a sudden I'm sitting in lockdown, homeschooling a primary 1. And it's like, so I started writing about stuff like that. And I just started writing. And the first time I wrote, I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm an absolute idiot. But everything I wrote felt embarrassing. I was sitting hanging the head, but oh God, I can't believe people I know are going to be reading this nonsense. And then once I got over that, I was like, who cares? The people that I actually will engage with it will like it. And the people that think I'm an idiot for posting this nonsense, who gives a shit? So I started writing and then I'm comfortable with it. And it just became a thing. And that was how the business started. And that was how the first year or two of the business started. I mean, I wrote about everything. I wrote about starting a business. I wrote about running a business while homeschooling. I wrote about surviving COVID at lockdown and these kind of things. I wrote about recruitment, shared recruitment advice and people that had been affected by redundancies. I just shared any knowledge I had, anything I thought could be useful. But at the same time, I used it as almost like an emotional support. It was like it was like an outlet for me to talk to people when I was sitting in the house. So it just grew and it grew, and then LinkedIn became a thing, and that was the foundations of the business as it ended up being.
Oh,
That was it. It's the whole business came about because everything that was a risk all of a sudden became marginal.
wow. That's impressive, man. The reason why I said it's impressive is because many people get to that crossroad.
Yeah.
And some people take a nosedive. Things get worse. They are unable to come out of it again.
Yeah.
And you use that as an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what advice do you have for somebody who is going through that kind of situation right now?
The biggest thing I've learned from it, part of me wishes I'd done it a lot sooner. I'm really risk averse. I've been running the inform meetings, which has now moved on to a founder series itself. And everyone that I speak to that are founders, the majority of people don't feel that risk. They're not risk averse. They're like run into the fire and I'd go and it's try shit. If it fails, it fails. Or you try something else. Pass it on me. I get anxious. The thought that makes me sweat. It's like I'm very risk averse. But I think the one thing I wish I'd done is understand the risk a lot sooner. Now, I worked in a recruitment business where to keep my job, I had to bring the company in 4 or 5 times what they paid me to earn my desk. It's a sales job at the end of the day. If I didn't bring that money in, I wouldn't have a job past 6 months. All of a sudden, COVID hit and I was on furlough pay and my mortgage was still paid. I was like, there really is no risk because if I'm not billing that for another company, I want the job. All I have to do is bill enough money to keep my mortgage paid, and it's a success. So I reframed the whole concept of risk. The actual risk of setting up the business was less than it was doing it for someone else. And all of a sudden I realized what's the worst that can happen? And the worst thing that could have happened with me with starting out the business was I wasted 14 quid registering a company name. And I lost a little bit of time and maybe learning something along the way. And what would I do if it all went tits up? I'd go and get another job or so. I'd go back and I'd get another job or I'd try something new. Exactly the same thing that if going to start with a new employer didn't work out, you'd go and get another job, you'd start something else. So the risk of starting a business is a lot smaller than people give it. And I reckon in a lot of cases, it's a lot smaller than people think. So if you want to try something, calculate the risk, analyze the risk, have a look at what the genuine risk actually is and whether or not you want to take that leap. But I reckon for the majority of people, the risk's a lot less than they think it is.
Basic. You know,